India losing in Adelaide in a pink ball test, the first time we heard it was way back in 2020. But the same thing has repeated in 2024 as India have once again lost a day-night test at the iconic Adelaide Oval at the hands of Australia. Now the Border Gavaskar Trophy is level at 1-1. But what it has done to India's possible World Test Championship final scenarios? Well, let's have a look. Well, this is the current World Test Championship standings of the cycle of 2023 until 2025. Well, India have slipped to third position now with a total of 16 matches played, 9 wins, 1 draw, a total of 6 losses that you've had. There has been a deduction of 2 points here, and now percentage of points earned for India stands at 57.29. Australia have jumped to the pole position currently with a percentage of points earned of 60.71, followed by South Africa, who are in a great position in the second test against Sri Lanka at the Haibeha. Remember, South Africa lead the 2-match series 1-1, and there is Sri Lanka, who are also going to face Australia in a couple of home test matches in January 2025. So these are the 4 teams that are currently in reckoning for a possible spot in the World Test Championship final, which means that New Zealand, after losing to England in the second test, they have been completely eliminated from the competition. So only 4 teams are left and there are 2 possible spots. Now, before we get to the scenarios, let's just be very clear of the assumptions that we are going to have. That possible assumptions for the WTC final scenarios, there are no further slow overhead deductions, because it is one thing that is usually brought to the picture, or which basically comes to be known after a match is played. So we are discussing here, or we are assuming things here, that there are going to be no further slow overhead deductions. Now, what is India's situation after the loss at the Adelaide Oval? Now, India have a total of 3 matches remaining, 1 at the Brisbane Gabba. The last time India won a test there was in 2021, and they went on to win the Border Gavaskar Trophy for the second successive time, 2-1, after they had won it previously in 2018. Second is going to be at the renowned Melbourne Cricket Ground, and the third and final test will take place at the SCG. So if India win all their 3 matches, then India's percentage of points earned is going to be 64.04, which means that India would be guaranteed a place in the World Test Championship final, which is going to be for a 3rd time in a row. But what if India lose one more test? Let's say, India lose at Gabba or MCG or at Sydney and win the remaining 2 matches. Then India's best possible finish is going to be 58.77. Now, you may ask this question, that would this be enough for India to guarantee a place in the WTC final? Well, not. But then what this would mean is that a percentage of points earned of 58.77 would mean that India would stay in contention, but then their fate would not really be in their own hands, and they would have to rely on the results of the series of South Africa versus Pakistan and obviously Sri Lanka versus Australia. And what if India lose 2 of their remaining 3 test matches? You're playing at Brisbane, MCG and Sydney. Let's say you lose 2, you win only 1 at Sydney. Your best possible finish is going to be 53.51, and this is as good as elimination from the competition. So with that said, what India really need to do is that they need to win their remaining 3 matches so as to assure a place in the WTC final, and just make sure that you only afford 1 more loss, because more than 1 defeat would call for elimination from the competition. Now let's move to Australia, who have obviously jumped to the number 1 spot in the WTC standings. Let's take a look at their possible scenarios. Well, what about Australia here? Australia also have a total of 5 matches remaining. 3 are going to be against India at home and 2 against Sri Lanka in Galle, which is going to be an away series, the final away series for Australia in this current WTC cycle. So Australia have, what they can basically do is that they can have a best possible finish of 71.05, which means that if they win all their 5 matches, they would be assured of a place in the WTC final, which is going to be a 2nd consecutive WTC final for the reigning World Test champions. Now, what if Australia win 4 of their 5 matches? Let's say you beat India in your remaining 3 matches and win 1 against Sri Lanka and lose 1, then your best possible finish is going to be 65.79, close to 66, more than confirmed that Australia will be there in their WTC final. Now, what if Australia win 3 of their 5 matches? Then your best possible finish is once again going to be 60.53, which means that it stays above the 60 mark, which is usually the average cutoff criteria of a place in a possible WTC final. Another thing, this would also mean that Australia would be assured of a place in the final. But what if Australia lose 3 of their 5 matches? Let's say you lose to India in the 3 matches and you win both against Sri Lanka. Australia would be knocked out of the race. So what this means is that Australia cannot afford more than a couple of losses as far as a place in a second successive WTC final is concerned. Now let's move to South Africa, who are currently in a brilliant position in the second test against Sri Lanka at Haibeha, Port Elizabeth. Well, remember, South Africa currently lead the 2-match series 1-1 after they had won the opening test rather comprehensively at Kingsmead, Durban. Now let's take a look at what are South Africa's possible scenarios. Now what happens if South Africa win in Haibeha? They'll have a total of 2 matches remaining, both against Pakistan, another home series for South Africa, a final home series in this WTC cycle, and their best possible finish, 69.44 of percentage of points served, guaranteed a place in the WTC final. Now, what if South Africa win 2 of their 3 matches? Then also their best possible finish would be above 60, 61.11, which would be more than assuring for them as far as a WTC final spot is concerned. So they should do it if they are to basically play the final at Lord's in June 2025. They cannot afford more than 1 loss. But then what if they lose 2 of their 3 matches? Then they will be knocked out of the competition, which means that South Africa can only afford 1 loss out of their remaining 3 matches. And obviously, you know, if they, let's just go back to this scenario that what if they win in Haibeha, then they'll obviously have a couple of matches remaining. And if they win 1 of the remaining 2 matches against Pakistan, they would be assured of a place in the WTC final. Now let's move to the last team who is in the reckoning of a possible spot in a WTC final, and that is Sri Lanka. Well, they have obviously made their way back into the competition after beating England at the Oval, defeating New Zealand 2-0 at home, but now currently against South Africa they are struggling, but still they are in the race. Now in case of Sri Lanka, what if they beat South Africa in Haibeha? Then they'll have a total of 2 matches remaining against Australia, both at Galle, a final home series for Sri Lanka in this WTC cycle, and their best possible finish would be 61.54, a guaranteed place in the WTC final. Now, what if SL lose 1 of their 3 matches? You win in Haibeha, but you lose both in Galle. You would be eliminated from the competition, which means that Sri Lanka effectively are in a must-win situation, and 1 more defeat in their remaining 2 or the 3 matches would guarantee the fact that they would not qualify for the WTC final. Well, the race is heating up. India, Australia, South Africa, Sri Lanka, all in the reckoning. But currently, as far things stand, Australia and South Africa are currently in the best position as far as qualifying for the WTC final is concerned. Sri Lanka are in a must-win situation, and let's not forget India, who still can make a comeback in the BGT and can probably qualify for their 3rd consecutive WTC final. What do you think about the latest WTC scenarios? And do you think that India can India make a comeback in the ongoing Border Gavaskar Trophy? You can let us know your thoughts in the comment section, and don't forget to subscribe to Sports Today for all the exciting updates and analysis from the sporting world. Until then, on behalf of my producer Pawan, it's Siddharth Gulati saying goodbye.